Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I feel much better after singing that song. I'm Reverend C.C. Coltrane. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Dayton. If you're here for the first time, thank you for sharing. That means dead batteries. Can you? Thank you so much.
You want this one to go?
I can use this one. So, if this is your first time here, welcome. She doesn't always change her batteries regularly. We're glad you're sharing your morning with us. If you have any questions at the end of the hour, please don't hesitate to ask me or anyone in the blue or white stoles. They are our practitioners and they have all the answers. Really, truly, they do. Here at Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Dayton, our mission is to be a community of love that supports all of us and all people in experiencing real transformation. That's really what we're about, is learning to live in a transformative fashion. And so we're glad you're here today to help us do that, because we learn how to do that in community. Jerry Blumgold this morning will offer our reading and invocation. Our vigil holder is Lenza Smith, and Jerry and Stephanie Stewart will offer our interfaith candle lighting, which is just, we do every week to remind ourselves that there's wisdom everywhere that we can find and use to live in a more transformative way. Thank you. So I have a couple of sad announcements to get out of the way first. For those of you who've been here for a while, you may remember John and Joni Spain. Joni's only son, Will, who was 32, died last week, and his memorial service was yesterday in Louisville, Kentucky. He had a congenital heart disorder, and he's had surgery several times, and then he had an infection that just swooped in, and they couldn't save him. So he made his transition, and if you want to send John and Joni a card, I have their address, so please see me after service, and I'll give you their mailing address. And also, our former practitioner, Terrence Bullock, made his transition this week. So his memorial will be on February 24th at 4 p.m. at Helping Hands Community Outreach, 4999 Northcutt Place. I will put that on our Facebook page as well. That's all I know. I have no details about what happened with dear Terrence, but there it is. Sad news. It's been a hard week. So a couple of other announcements. If you were part of our pictorial directory and had your beautiful photo taken, there's a copy of the directory for you in the lending library after service. I think they have names on them. Yeah, they'll have your name on it. So you can go in, and it should be sort of laid out in alphabetical groups. You can go out and look for your name, your last name, and take your copy of the directory. I'm very, very pleased with the way those photos turned out. They're quite good of all of us. We're all beautiful. Also, we have an ongoing drive for the young people at Choices Foster Care. Choices is an organization that helps foster kids move from foster care into real life, if you will, and helps them. At Christmas we sponsored 2 of those kids, and now we're sponsoring a drive for food and household goods that help them in their quest for independent living. There are 2 barrels over there, and each one has a list of needed items on it. So take a look, bring in an item or 2, and put it in the barrel, and we will make sure it gets where it's supposed to go. And be sure to take a look at your bulletin, because there's lots of stuff coming up. We have a game night next month. We have, I don't know what all else. There's a whole lot coming up. So we put that in the bulletin every week so that you can see what you've got to choose from. Come and find something fun to do with your community members. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the amazing Higher Mind Band for a song called Love's in Need of Love Today, featuring Mo.
We light the first candle to honor Christianity. What a person plants, they will harvest. One who plants selfishness, ignoring the needs of others, harvests a crop of weeds. We light the second candle to honor Taoism. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. We light the third candle to honor Judaism. There is one respect in which each of us has precisely the same strength as Moses, namely the strength to choose. There is no hand of heaven, no psychological, genetic, physiological, or providential compulsion that forces us to act one way rather than another. We light the fourth candle to honor Buddhism. Irrigators channel waters. Fletchers straighten arrows. Carpenters bend wood. The wise master themselves. We light the fifth candle to honor Islam. O my servants, it is only your deeds that I record for you, then recompense for you. So let one who finds good praise Allah, and let one who finds other than good blame no one but themselves. We light the sixth candle to honor the spirituality of the Navajo. Be careful when speaking. You create the world around you with your words. We light the final candle to honor Hinduism. The wind is blowing. Those vessels whose sails are unfurled catch it and go forward on their way. But those which have their sails furled do not catch the wind. Is that the fault of the wind? Today's reading is from Beyond Religion, Ethics for the Whole World by the Dalai Lama. Whenever I meet people, whether they are presidents or beggars, whether dark or fair, short or tall, rich or poor, from this nation or that, of this faith or that, I try to relate to them simply as human beings who, like me, seek happiness and wish to avoid suffering. Adopting this perspective, I find, generates a natural feeling of closeness, even those who until that moment were complete strangers to me. Let's take these words into the silence for a moment. So I know today is a day of openness, oneness, that every aspect of this service is divine. Every note that is sung, played, every word spoken is for our highest and best good. I know this is a time of unfolding, a time of sharing, a time of the one love that we are. And I thank you, God, for this time that we are sharing. And together we say, and so it is.
So last week, Stephanie began an exploration that will take us closer to the end of the year, an exploration of our annual topic, which is spirituality in action. Our theme for the rest of the year, until the end of November anyway, comes from Reverend Dr. James A. Forbes Jr.'s 10 Principles of Prophetic Justice. And the first one is Seek the Common Good, and that's our theme for February. 10 Principles of Prophetic Justice. What the heck is prophetic justice? Right? Well, let's think about those that we call prophets. Isaiah, Moses, Muhammad, Deborah, Miriam, Jesus. The character that they all share is that they spoke truth to power. They were mystics, and they said, here is what God wants, and what you're doing is not in alignment with that, and so we say no more. We say no more of what you're doing. Prophetic justice for us is about standing up and saying, the truth is that there's only one of us. There's only one life. Everything participates in it, and so when we see something that flies in the face of that truth, we say, no more, right? It's speak and take action and do things that support that high vision that's hanging out there in the foyer there, that big, great big vision, a world that works for everyone. The first principle, seek the common good, involves testing whether a policy or a law or indeed a way of being in the world supports the good of the whole, or does it benefit only a few? Our society these days, of course, is the whole world. It's the globe and beyond, right? We live in such a small world that society isn't just those around us anymore. It's the world, it's the plants, it's the animals, it's the planet itself. So when we seek the common good, is it the good for just us or just a few, or is it the good of the whole, everything? And the foundation for this idea of seeking the common good is the very foundation of our philosophy, and that is that there's only oneness, that we're all part of this thing we call spirit, that we all partake of the life of the one and the mind of the one. It's the foundation of our whole beingness, of everything that we talk about here. That God is one and God is all there is. And so if there's only one of us, then what we choose to express individually and collectively surely ought to be good for the whole, right? The one. There's only one of us. You know, if we think about our bodies, if we cut off our left hand, it affects the whole. If we poke ourselves in the eye persistently, it affects the whole. If we mistreat our lungs or our heart, it affects the whole. Whatever we do for or to any part of the one, we do to or for the one. It makes sense, right? And it's true whether we're speaking of our own bodies or this oneness that we call life. So we have to extend our view of things a little bit, I think, outward, from our own beings and our own bodies and our own lives to all those around us. And that's why we're talking about recognizing our common humanity. You know, we're one with and the same as every other person on earth. We're also one with and the same as everything on earth, all life, but we'll start with human beings. It's a lot of beings out there. Let's start with each other, right? You know, our DNA, no matter where a human comes from, our DNA is 99.9% identical to that of every other human being on earth. 99.9. That's very, very close. Very, very close. We're more similar to everyone on earth than we are different. And every one of us has the same needs and desires. You know, first we want food and water and shelter and warmth. We want to survive, right? And then we want love and friendship. And then we want opportunity to create, to express, and to make a difference and to create meaning in the world. Everybody on earth wants that. There's nobody who doesn't. But we have a lot of beliefs and isms that sort of lead us to do just the opposite, to act in just the opposite direction. We have a few biological impulses that are very old, maybe even archaic, and a whole lot of societal biases that we pick up that tend to make us view anyone who isn't like us as the other. As the other. And these weird biases and little biological impulses make us distrust each other. They make us apprehensive of people who aren't like us. So we look for ways that we're different. We seek evidence of our differences instead of seeking evidence of our sameness. And there are those who capitalize on these biases and seek to make us more afraid of each other, of people who aren't like us. So our spiritual practice, which in effect is our whole life, right? Here we're about a walking, talking spirituality, a practical, in-the-world spirituality. So our whole life is our spiritual practice. Our spiritual practice, our life, is pointed at keeping spiritual truth in our conscious awareness. So that when we find ourselves collecting evidence that someone isn't like us and therefore to be feared, we can stop and bring the truth back in and say, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I remember now what I know, that there's only one of us and that we are more alike than we are different, and that with that truth I can find ways to welcome this someone as myself. It requires a shift in the way we see things. It does. It's time for all of us to move, I think, from seeing just ourselves and those that we care about and have responsibility for, and begin to see that in day-to-day life, we are all in this together. We are all in this together. And that what happens to one of us ripples through the whole. We're all in this together. We're in it with every other human being, with every animal and plant and tree and air current and ocean and river and speck of dust. We're all in this together. We all want the same things. We all want the same things. We all strive to thrive, not just survive. The Buddhists have been telling us this for thousands of years, and in a peculiar way they describe the world. You know, they say that nothing arises by itself, that everything arises in dependence on all the other things that are arising around us. Everything's interrelated and interwoven to such a degree that what any of us does sets up a chain of secondary causes that kind of ripples outwards from us. They call it dependent origination. Think about going to Kroger and buying broccoli. It's not just something you do in a vacuum, right? You're being able to walk in there and select a bunch of broccoli is dependent upon a whole lot of other things happening that other people are in charge of. There's somebody who plans the farming. There's somebody who chooses the seed, somebody who tills the soil and plants the seed, someone who tends the plant, someone who picks the broccoli, someone who packs it and prepares it for shipping, someone who ships it, someone who unloads it, someone who brings it in and stacks it up in those nice little piles, so that all you have to do is walk in and choose a bunch of broccoli. Wow. Your ability to do that is dependent on all that other stuff. And your buying the broccoli is in and of itself another in this web of events. In his book, Ethics for a New Millennium, the Dalai Lama wrote this. He said, self and others can only be understood in terms of relationship. Relationship. We see that self-interest and others' interests are so closely interrelated. Indeed, within this picture of what they call dependently originated reality, we see that there is no self-interest completely unrelated to others' interests. Due to the fundamental interconnectedness which lies at the heart of reality, your interest is also my interest, and my interest is also your interest. From this, it becomes clear that my interest and your interest, in a deep sense, converge. They're one. We all have the same interests, really. They converge. And so Ernest Holmes, our founder, talked about this when he talked about the will of God. He said, the will of God for you is whatever brings you a greater sense of livingness, provided it takes nothing away from anyone else. Provided it takes nothing away from any other being. And again, the Dalai Lama says the concept of dependent origination compels us to take the reality of cause and effect with utmost seriousness. By this I mean that a particular cause leads to particular effects, and that certain actions lead to suffering, while others lead to happiness. It is in everybody's interest to do what leads to happiness and not do what leads to suffering. Well, duh, right? It seems so simple. Yeah, we do what leads to happiness and not what leads to suffering, but we don't do that, do we? Often we do the things that lead to suffering, or things that we think will lead to our happiness without consideration for what they do to other people. We're seeing that everywhere. We're seeing it all over the planet. The ranchers, for example, who cut down the rainforest, which we call the lungs of the planet, they thought, I'm sure, that clearing that and having more land to run more cattle would increase their profits and thus their happiness. But they didn't think about all of us who depend on that exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. They didn't think about the trees themselves or the animals that live in the forest and depend on the rainforest for life. They didn't think about anything other than their profit. Yet our philosophy tells us that our good, when it takes away from somebody else, isn't good at all. Everything moves in circles. Ernest Holmes talks about this repeatedly. So everything we take away from someone else is taken away from us ultimately. And everything we give to someone else comes back to us, multiplied. That's the promise. Good has a way of multiplying itself. Not good, not so much. But it still comes back to us. So what does that mean to us? I think we have to start really realizing that our good is good if it's good for creation, for all of us. Our good is good. My desire to be happy and your desire to be happy and the desire of people in Central America or Syria or Ukraine and the animals in Africa and Borneo and Mexico and everything everywhere, those desires are exactly the same. They're exactly the same. We all want to be free and happy and safe and content. Every being. So how do we live? Well, we have to step out in front of our own egos sometimes. Sometimes we have to step out in front of our own egos and say, what is the interest of the whole? What is it that will bring joy and happiness and good to the whole? How am I going to bring the life of the one I call God, which is all that I am? How am I going to bring that into action in this instance, under these circumstances? See, I think we have to be conscious about that and to take our belief in oneness into what we do in the world. So I'm going to steal a little preaching I heard a week or so ago that was so good I can't not use it. There was a woman named Bishop Yvette Flunder, and she is of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, which is an organization of affirming ministries of which Centers for Spiritual Living is a part. Now, Bishop Flunder is a Metacostal. She calls herself a Baptist Metacostal because she grew up as a Pentecostal and she learned to preach as a Pentecostal, but now she's a metaphysician as well. And she's amazing. And so she gave this talk about Jesus right after and I don't use Jesus all the time, but this is just really a good illustration of what Jesus was trying to teach you and me, that we are the place the life of God shows up. So she's given this talk about a couple of verses in the book of Luke. And it was right after Jesus had come out of the desert, when this temptation, when Satan was saying, use your power to do all these worldly things. And Jesus said, get thee behind me. So he's at his home synagogue. Did it ever occur to you that Jesus was actually a member of a church? He was, right? He had a synagogue that was his own. So that day he wasn't preaching in the synagogue, he was reading in the synagogue. And so the attendant handed him the scroll where Isaiah was written, and Jesus found the place where it is written, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And then he rolled up the scroll and he handed it back to the attendant and he sat down. and everybody in the synagogue was looking at him. So he said, "Today, this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." Today, this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. What Jesus was saying to them is, today I'm not going to read the book anymore. I'm going to be the book. Today I'm going to be the book. And that was the call that he makes to all of us. Don't be talking. Don't be thinking. Don't be reading. Be the book, right? We can no longer forget what we know to be the truth until Sunday. We have to remember it on Monday, and Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday. In everything that we do, we have to remember what we know to be the truth, that God is one, and that that one is all there is, and that we are all in this together. We're called to understand and to expand our appreciation of this profound connection that binds us together, of this profound connection that binds us to Spirit. We have to start to develop a genuine concern for each other, for the other's welfare, for the welfare of our planet and the welfare of all of its beings. We have to begin to be the book. We have to ask ourselves, God is showing up as me today. How do I deeply want that to look? What would the divine heart, that boundless heart of love, do in this situation right here? It's time for us to stop reading and start being. So I want to finish with something I found on Facebook, that fountain of wisdom. But sometimes it really truly is. Sometimes it really truly is. I made a few copies of this because I've been asked for it. It's over on the Welcome Center there. It goes like this. Get up off your knees. Come out of your churches, your mosques, your temples. God can hear your prayers for peace, justice, and hope in this broken world just fine while you're out creating peace, working for justice, and giving hope to the world. When are we going to finally realize that humanity is the solution to inhumanity? When will we finally understand that we're all drops of the same ocean, hurting together, healing together, hoping together? So don't just pray for hands to heal the hurting. Pray with hands that are healing the hurting. Don't just pray for arms to help the helpless. Pray with arms that are helping the helpless. Don't just pray on feet that are responding to need. Pray with feet that are responding to need. Don't just pray for somebody to do something. Be somebody who does something. Don't just pray for answers. Be the answer. Be the book. So let's come together right now in a little contemplation. Let us join together in consciousness and simply open ourselves up to this notion that we are the answer, that we are the book, that we always have been, and now we simply have to say yes to it and allow it to live as us, to let the answer find its way into the world by means of us. For each one of us is a manifestation of that one life, that one infinite, unconditional, boundless love that God is. Each one of us is the place it shows up in our world. Each one of us is the always evolving and expanding and growing edge of heaven on earth. That is what we are here to do. We are not here to read or think. We are here to evolve and expand and do and be the very presence of Spirit right here and right now. We are here to make manifest the truth that we are all in this together and that there is only one of us. And so right now, I invite each of us to just feel that spark that lives at our very core. That spark of infinite love, that spark of eternal hope, that spark of mighty power. That spark that gets us out of bed in the morning, that lets us recognize in each other's eyes, yes, sometimes the hurting, but also the hope, the healing, the joy. Also the joy. And what I know for each one of us right now is that we simply lean into that. We step out in front of our egos and say, yes, I am here to be the healing, to be the answer, to bring the hope, to spread the joy, to heal the suffering. I am here to bring all that I am into this world with as much power and as much joy as I possibly can, so that more of God shows up by means of me. I know that we simply lean into what we know to be true and live it. That we lean in to that divine guidance that is within each one of us and let it speak as our voice. And that we never shy away. We never shy away because something seems hard. We remember, we lean into that power which lives at our core. And so what I know is that we are doing the work of making this world a place where everyone, where all beings are free and safe and content and happy. That is heaven on earth, my friends, and that is what we are here to do. And so I know we do it moment by moment, word by word, action by action, day by day. We just let it show up by means of us in bigger and bigger ways. And so I give thanks. I give thanks that we can come together and feed each other for our journey. I give thanks that we can come together and build each other up for our journey. I give thanks that we can come and reflect to one another the beauty that we are, so that our journey is light, so that we dance down the path, so that we sing and celebrate. And so in deep gratitude, I simply release this all into the law of mind, into that great universal one that always says yes, that always says yes. And so I let go, I let God, I let it be, and we say together, and so it is.
A simple thread in this glorious web of life. We are all just drops within a stream flowing through an ocean of life. We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going.
Amen. Here they are. It's okay, come on up. We have an opportunity now to recognize that circular nature of things that I was talking about and giving to this community. What we give comes back to us. Because your contributions, which are our only source of funds, they make this community possible. So when you contribute, you're contributing to everyone around you and to yourself and to everyone who is looking for a community like this one. So consider that for a moment and think about those around you as you take your offering in your heart or your hands and realize I make this contribution for myself and I make this contribution for everyone around me because we are community. And together we bring each other hope. We bring each other healing. We hold each other when we're hurting. But we grow together. We move forward. And that is good and very good. And so it is. That's very nice. So our practitioners are here to pray with you after the service. If there's something going on in your life you can't quite figure out, break through, need a little spiritual truth on, just ask any one of the people in the teal or white stoles and they will find a corner to take you off to pray with you. It's their gift to you on Sundays with their love. Don't forget to pick up your directory if you were part of that pictorial directory in the Linden Library. And thank you. Thank you for being here, being part of the service this morning. Thanks to our ushers and greeters. Thanks to our practitioners. Thanks to the welcome team. Thanks to the Higher Mind Band. Yes. Nice bass on that last one, Kenny. Thanks to you. Let's close with an affirmation. Stand up for that. And our closing song, which is A Light in This World. Oh, please, repeat after me. I know that the world's good.
I know that the world's good.
And my good.
And my good.
Are the same.
Are the same.
Today I am the book.
Today I am the book.
Today I am the answer.
Today I am the answer.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Have a wonderful week, everybody.